All right.
Yes, sir.
Everyone seeing the file?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we should be. There we are. Now we're on this last section down here. And I went back through First Thessalonians chapter 3, verses 1 through 5. And this is piecemeal from those 5 verses. So James has already translated this, and he's been to the First Thessalonians. We translated the whole book. And so he can cheat a little bit, but let's start with Benjamin. Can you take this first? Well, why don't you just take the first line? There's not much of a break in it, so let's just take the first line, if you would.
Eudakesamen katalethesai kai epemsamen Timotheon 2.
All right. Okay, what did you get there?
It seemed good to us to stay behind, and we sent Timothy.
All right. Everyone agree with that translation? Said Timothy. And then we really ought to start probably right here and go down. Bobby, you do this much right here?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Let me find that. Good. 2, stay redzag, humas kai paraka lesa, humas pari tes pistulos. And I got, let me find it. Let's see, Benjamin got to Timothy, to establish you and to encourage you concerning your faith.
Okay. Concerning the faith. Now, the faith with the article, what's the difference in just concerning faith and concerning the faith? Is anybody help us out here?
Paul's referring to a body of doctrine.
Yes, that's what he's a body of doctrine here. And then you can show that from Galatians 1, the last 3 verses of chapter 1 of Galatians. He now preaches the faith of which you want might have it. And then, of course, he's now preaching the gospel. And back in about verses 6 through 9, it's the gospel he's preaching. Okay. Now, we have an article with an infinitive, which one of our things we had here, I think that's one of the things, I know we got it right here. Infinitive with the article, that's what he's trying to illustrate here. We have that as a subject or an object. And so one is a subject, one is an object. And so to lein, this right here is the speaking, and it's to speak, but it's used more like a substantive. It's used more like a noun. That's what he's telling us here. So it's just it's an action of speaking. It's the act of speaking, and so it's treated like a noun here. Some action of speaking. And we get down here, we got the genitive expresses a purpose. So let's come down to see what we got here. The genitive with article with the infinitive. We have a genitive article with the infinitive right here. And this is, how did you translate that now? Send.
Let me go back to that.
So did you say to establish? So
to establish.
To establish. And so it's treated like a noun. The so for the action of establishing. And so think of it as a noun, an event or something occurring. And so that's how it's to be viewed there. Let's go back up and look at, see, it's a genitive case and got a genitive article.
Right.
That's what they're trying to tell us here. Expresses a purpose. So the purpose was to establish, the purpose was more like the event of establishing something like an event. So that's how you view it. Okay. Now, go ahead. I'm sorry. Question? All right. We have down here with the next one, we have peri, and this is taste with the genitive. That's the genitive article concerning the faith. And of course, that's that body of doctrine that Paul was preaching. Does that help a bit?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
James, you want to take that last one there for us?
I didn't translate it, but I'll give it a go. Via tuto, epempsa tu ganonai tain pistin humon. And it looks like it's through this I sent to know our faith.
Okay. So this I sent on account of this, or because of this, I sent think of it like an event of knowing the faith. So for the purpose of knowing the faith. So genitive, let's go back to it here. We can see what we got here is a genitive expresses a purpose. So the purpose of doing what? That's a mind of knowing, for the purpose of knowing your faith.
Yeah, your faith. I said our faith. It's the plural genitive, genitive plural, so it would be your faith.
Does that help a bit? Okay. So that's how you can see the infinitives are pretty powerful. They do a lot more than they do in English. And so they can function like substantives or nouns. Of course, we do that with the gerund in English, I believe. I always have trouble with those gerunds. Okay. This grammar. Any question? All right, we got started late with the troubles we had, but I think we got it straightened out. Let's try a little bit of lesson 31. We won't get into any translation. He has John 10:11 as an illustration. Ego eimi, ho poimen, ho kalos. And so ego eimi is a being verb. And so I am. And then ego is, and our English word ego comes from this word. He has a big ego. It's all about himself, but big I. We think of it, he's a big I and ego. And so ego eimi, what is the significance of the doubling up of that ego eimi? What is the significance of that?
Emphatic.
It's emphatic. Anytime you have the first person singular or first person plural pronoun with a verb in Greek, it's emphatic. It's always emphatic. And so what we have here, I, and then literally translated, I am. I am. The word I is there twice, actually. And of course, it wouldn't be good English to translate it that way, but that's literally what it's saying. So it's emphatic. I am. See, it's emphatic. And if you were translating, you might put that in bold print. I am what? I am the shepherd, ho poimen, ho kalos. And so there's equal emphasis on the shepherd and the kalos because both of them have the article. Right? So the shepherd, the good shepherd. Now, there's two Greek words for good. There's kalos, And there's another word, agathos. And I'll write it down here. Let me write it right here. And then I'll put it in, change the font to symbol font, and that will get it for us. Don't have the diacritical markings on here, but agathos. And so that's the word that's good, morally good. This is good in a moral sense. And kalos is good in the sense that it has all its parts in the right proportions. It's proportional. Everything is what it should be in proportion to other things. Does that help? All right. So that's the difference in those two words. Okay. I am the shepherd, the good one. I have everything I need as a shepherd. I'm doing all of my jobs properly to perfection. Okay. So the shepherd does all the tasks that a shepherd should do is basically how we should see that. Of course, he is morally good, agathos, but the stress here is upon the fact that he is going to accomplish everything he's supposed to do as that shepherd. And that's a lesson in itself. Jesus accomplished everything. What did he say on the cross? It is what? Starts with an F.
Finished.
It is.
Time.
And so all of his work was finished. I'm the good shepherd. I'm going to do all the things I'm supposed to be here to do. And that's a lesson in itself right there. A Judean shepherd, I saw a Basque shepherd from the Basque region of Spain out in western Oklahoma. Before I started preaching, I was, that was probably in 1969 or 1970. Whenever I saw him, he would take his sheep and he would rent the right to let his sheep graze on the pastures, out in the pastures. And he had a couple of 2 or 3 dogs, but he would walk in front of the sheep and they would follow him. He would talk to them and they followed him. And those sheep would heed his voice. And everyone was amazed at it. And so that's that shepherd, those sheep hear my voice. That's a whole lesson in itself. But I actually saw this happen, and it was amazing to me. I was told that the writing, and I have it somewhere. Let's see. J.W. McGarvey, I believe it was. I think it was J.W. McGarvey, wrote a book about the New Testament lands, and I think I've got a copy of it. It's pretty good. It's not it's not up to date on the geography and everything. It's correct, but it's not something I would say go out and hunt it and pay $100 for it. It wouldn't be worth it. But he did. He had some pretty good stuff. But he wrote somewhere that he saw 2 shepherds and their flocks got together, and when they got together, he said they drank at the well and they watered, and then he said, how in the world are they going to separate all those sheep? They got all mixed up. And one shepherd started talking, and the other one started talking, and the sheep separated and followed their shepherds. They just went back out and separated from the group where they merged together. And he said, I saw exactly what the Lord said about my sheep know my voice. And he said he hadn't seen that before. And I didn't see that with the boss shepherd because he only had one flock. But McGarvey said he saw it happen. Is that pretty clear? That explains the Lord's words. My sheep hear my voice, and they don't follow the voice of anyone else. The good shepherd. Okay, but that's a whole lesson in itself. I'm sorry I got off. Hope that wasn't
I think
useful for you. Okay.
The
Any
title
questions?
you're look-
You
title
are?
you're, the title you're looking for is, I think, Land of the Bible or the Lands of the Bible.
Yeah, Lands of the Bible. Yeah, I've got it. Okay. Anyhow, but I'm not sure he wrote that in the Lands of the Bible. I think it might have been in one of his commentaries where he wrote it. I'm not sure about that. He wrote a commentary on Acts and then one fourfold gospel as well. Something else he wrote too. But I've got several things he wrote. But let's go into it a little further. I got maybe spent too much time on Carlos, but I kind of wanted you to see the difference in them. I don't think this ought to be strictly just a Greek study. It's applied Greek. We want to learn the Greek, but we want to make application of it. We have liquid stems of the third declension. And here's the rules are, we have soter and the ends of a row, for example. Notice they give the os, that's your genitive ending. So it would continue the row, but it would put an os on it. Okay, so this is your stem. Drop off the genitive ending, and what's left is your stem. So the nominative case in this case is the stem. And that's your stem. So we have it. Of course, the article tells us it's masculine gender. They don't have a sigma in the nominative case, so there's no sigma on this at the end of it here. Short vowels before the ending lengthened in the nominative. That's poimen, poimenos. Now notice this short vowel epsilon's what he's saying. When you put it in the genitive case, it has the right vowel. So the stem would be, I'll move it. There's your stem right there. That's your stem. And it's got a short vowel, a short epsilon, right? So that short epsilon becomes an eta in the nominative form. Eta is a long E and epsilon is a short E. You remember that, of course, I hope. Okay. So that's what that's telling you there. Any questions about that? So a short vowel lengthens in the nominative, and he gives them a poimen here, or poimenos. See, the eta becomes an epsilon. It becomes short. A short vowel here in the stem. There's your stem. That short vowel epsilon in the nominative becomes an eta. But notice what we have here, the stem then will have the menos, poimen. Right? But it turns into an eta all the way across here in the singular. However, in the plural, it goes back to in the genitive, ablative, and all of your cases down here through. It goes back to an epsilon, a short. In the genitive, ablative, dative, instrumental, locative cases, okay? And in the accusative case as well, okay? All right. Now, like poimen or declined ion, and this is a poorly worded sentence. So it should say ion and ionos are declined like poimen. And so that's an awkward sentence, but I didn't write it, so I declined. Ion is and our English word eon comes from this word. So we have eons. And that's a long period of time. Ionos. And that's the genitive form of it. And there's your nominative case form. And again, what we have here, the eta becomes, the epsilon became an eta in the poimen. Remember that. Let's go back to it. The eta, the epsilon becomes an eta in the nominative case form. Poimen does that. Ion does that. So we have a short vowel, omicron. Okay. And so our stem is this right here. The os ending is your genitive ending. What? I don't know. I'm having a problem with that. Why that has a circumflex? It's just a different accent mark. Okay, because it's on the keynote on the end. Okay, all right. Age or time. This is a period of time rather than the world itself, but it's translated world. We have the word governor, and it follows the same rule. Okay, the Omicron becomes an omega. This Omicron is short. There's your genitive. This Omicron becomes an omega over here. Omicron is short, omega is long. So that's following that rule. And care and kairos. And so we have here, this is a hand, and it's feminine gender. And that doesn't mean your hands are feminine. It just, of course, that's just aspect of the Greek, of the language, okay? Any questions or comments so far? All right. Adjectives in own, the stem own. So we have here own and the stem own. And I looked right here. That's your stem, what's highlighted right there. That's your stem. Right? And so drop the os, and what's left is the stem. Okay? So again, this Omicron becomes an omega. And Omicron is short and omega is long. Okay? And so adjectives in liquid stems, and they follow the same rule. Right? Are reflected like the liquid nouns. They are two terminations, masculine and feminine, being alike. So how do you tell whether it's masculine or feminine? You'll have to go to the lexicon and tell. Or you can look at some adjectives in the, of course, your adjective will have to agree with what it's modifying. So you take your adjective, and if it looks, the form is that the same as masculine or feminine, like we have down here, then you'd say, okay, what's it modifying in the context? And usually that'll be pretty clear, and it'll either be a masculine or feminine noun. Okay, that's modifying. So that would tell you, and there might be a participle in there. And the participle has gender as well, okay? Or there might be an article with it. The article will tell. Sometimes the article is inserted where you don't think it's necessary because of, we've been through this before just by way of review. If we have a word that is not a Greek word, it comes from another language, it might not be fully declinable. The word Jesus, Jesus, is not fully declinable. The genitive form and the dative genitive ablative and the dative instrumental locative forms are all the same. It has a separate form for the nominative and for the accusative and for the vocative. But the genitive, and I'll use the word Jesus, all of these have the same form. So you can't tell whether it's genitive or dative, right? And genitive would carry the genitive ablative or dative instrumental locative. Can't tell with the word Jesus. So what happens most of the time is an article will be with it, and which you wouldn't think it necessary to have it with Jesus, because context, obviously it's Jesus. But the article will be there probably, the scholars think, it's probably there to tell you what the case is, whether it's genitive or ablative or dative interrogative. Does that help, Ben? So you may run into that sometimes. You say, why is the article there? And if it's not fully declinable, then it doesn't have all the forms. Jesus has nominative, and it has a form that covers all of those right there. Has a separate form for accusative. I think it has a vocative form, but I can't remember. Most of the time, the vocative and nominative are the same, but once in a while, they're different forms. Okay. Does that help? Ben? All right. So again, these forms here, the masculine and feminine are the same form, and you're going to have to go by context to tell whether it's masculine or feminine. Usually that's not a problem. Most of the time it's not a problem. Once in a while it may be a problem. And if it could be either, I think you need to be fair with the context and say, look, if you were making a translation, I think I would footnote it and say, or, and I'd give the option of it, what else it might be. Because your readers, if they're using what you've translated, then you're being honest and fair with it. Even if you think you are sure what it is, unless there's articles or infinitives, or participles, to lay it out pretty clearly. If it's up in the air, then I would give the reader the option of taking either one, put it in a footnote, is what I would do. All right, any question there? Now, we haven't gotten down to our vocabulary yet. I want to cover this real quickly, and we'll start with section 234 next time. But this is kind of important. So we'll come back and hit it again. The articular infinitive with prepositions. It with pro, it's time before. If ein, it's time while, and meta is time after. So if it has time in it, these will tell you before, during, or after. Before, during, or after, while, or during. And for cause, and it always goes with the gender. Some Greek authorities claim it goes with the ablative. It's not a big deal. It's just a little bit difference in their opinion of what it is, because it's using a causal setup. Dion, to, elthane, tone, sotora. So, because of this, because the Savior came, because of the coming of the Savior. And so the Savior came. Now, notice right here, let's come back and we'll look at this later. But this is in the accusative case, and the subject of an infinitive is in the accusative case. So it's for the coming, the Savior to come, the coming of the Savior came. That's why the word came is put after it in English, because this becomes the subject. Infinitives take their accusative general reference, it's called, but think of it like a subject of the infinitive is always in the accusative case. We have purpose statements, so these are the uses of your infinitives. We've had 2 or 3 lessons now that had information on infinitives. And the file that I sent you, it goes into that in some detail. It's called Greek Lexicon and Grammar Notes file. Okay. And so we'll come back. Let's do this. Next time we'll come back to section 235. Are there questions? All right.